listening to the Starting Block Podcast. Guys, this is a show for complete athletic development. If you are new to the show, we are slightly different than your standard podcast. Actually, we're a lot different than your standard podcast, particularly podcasts in our industry. But anyways, here's how we're different, all right? We actually have a variety of different shows within the show. So the first episode you're going to get from us is going to be a bi-weekly Q&A. That's where myself and my co-host, Chris, what's up, man?
Hey, guys.
That's where Chris and I will take the questions you guys submit to us and we'll tackle them there. Now, the best way to submit questions to us is going to be via our social media. You can reach Chris at
info@startingblockpodcast.com
you cannot.
or Fast and Agile on Instagram.
Yeah, we tried to wing that, but that didn't work. So, the info Starting Block Podcast is not going to be available anymore.
Scratch that. Yep,
so you can reach us at the Starting Block Podcast on Instagram. You can reach me on Instagram at FarmerJohn_ELP. And Chris, yours was what again?
Fast and Agile 49.
Okay, cool. All right, so that's how you can get to us. Guys, Q&A, it can be anything within our field, strength conditioning, more detailed stuff, speed. We can talk about the rehab, the neuro side of stuff, questions about the guests we brought on. Fire away. We'll tackle them there. We've got a guest interview is going to be the other episode you'll hear from us, and that is like every other podcast on the planet. That's where we're going to bring our friends, colleagues, and they're going to share their stories of success, what they do with their clients and patients, and how they win. And then the final episode is going to we got two other ones. We've got a athlete spotlight that's going to be a quarterly episode that you'll get from us, where you just get an opportunity to hear from some of our athletes that have trained with Chris and I, since we implement very similar systems, and just hear how they improved using the theories and stuff that we talk about. And then the final thing will be that Friday Fire. That's going to be about a quarterly episode as well, which is about 10 to 20 minutes of me just kind of brain dumping and talking about some things that I feel are important to our industry and maybe help you guys out as parents, athletes, and coaches. Now, we also, guys, do not run ads on the show at the moment. I'm not saying we won't ever, but right now we're looking for companies and businesses that align with our core beliefs and values and our mission. And so we ask simply, since we are doing this out of our own pocket, that you please share the show. If you got value out of this, just bring us a friend. Support this mission. We've gotten censored a couple times already. And so if you like the information that we put out there, you need to help us out and just do us a solid and help spread this message. We are definitely fighting the establishment in a number of different ways. And so if you want to be in this fight with us, then join us and share the show and bring us a friend. So I think that's about it. So what's up, man? How are you today?
Man, doing great. I think, we had, if you're listening to this, the thing that kind of brought about this topic that John and I are going to discuss today, it probably happened 2 or 3 weeks ago by now. But there was a current event that happened earlier this week that kind of really spurred my thoughts. And so this episode, John, I think is going to fall more into the category of a Friday Fire, more so than it is a Q&A. What do you think?
Yeah, I guess from what you told me you want to talk about, guys, if you don't understand our show yet, we pretty much wing this stuff. We may plan a little bit if we got a guest coming on, but pretty much everything else is just authentic. So half the time, I don't even know what we're getting ready to talk about, which probably it makes sense based on the quality of our content. but no. So yeah, I think it's going to be good. And hey, I want to give a shout out real quick too, before we get started, before I get too heated. Y'all want to give a shout out to our listeners in France, bro. You guys are awesome out there. I appreciate the hell out of y'all. I made a joke.
Thank you, France.
Yeah. You guys, y'all took the U.S. men's and women's teams down to the wire. And I'd like to think that our podcast had a little something to do with that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Look, boy, I'd love to get some feedback on that, from some of their mails and go, yeah, we listen to your show.
Man, y'all, the basketball teams, y'all were awesome in the Olympics. I think you guys are going to be the dominant force. I don't think I think now that you're going to see LeBron's done, KD's probably done. Anthony Davis is going to be 36, I think, the next Olympics. He's already injury prone. Steph Curry's probably done. The core of the U.S. men's Olympic team is pretty much gone, and I don't really think there's a whole lot of there's talent, obviously, but not these elite guys. You got these Chet Holmgrens that have opportunity. Cooper Flagg is a beast, but I think and Wimby is going to be 10 times better than he was at this Olympics. So
Sure.
he's going to be the dominant force. And then the women's team, that y'all's team, guys, holy shit, y'all played a great game. Now, Caitlin Clark's not out there yet, but she will be soon. And then
Right.
you got something else to deal with. But yeah, anyways, just a shout out to you guys over there across the pond. Appreciate you guys, man.
Thank you, France. Absolutely.
Heck yeah. So yeah, what's up, man?
Well, so the current event that I was referring to, John, earlier was the Donald Trump and Elon Musk interview that was aired on X. Okay, X or Twitter, formerly known as Twitter. It was, and here's what's funny. I didn't even listen to it. I didn't hear any clips, nothing. Okay.
Oh, I did.
But what I find interesting about it, and I could not care less which side of the aisle you are on, but what I found interesting was that it was so many nations, our own nation included, tried to actually censor this interview before it ever even happened. Well, I was like, well, why is that? Why would someone want to censor something, that has not even happened yet? How can you, I understand, okay, they call it disinformation or whatever it is, whatever the term is that's being used. I get that. I may not agree with it, but I get
I'm going to
it.
stop you right there. It's not disinformation. What it is it is the people at the top. If you say something that doesn't fall in line with their agenda, which is communism, then it's misinformation. So no, it's not misinformation.
So
it's
correct.
because it doesn't agree with their agenda.
So every single field, whether it be politics or whether, which again, I'm probably the most non-political person in the world, medicine, and we'll just probably bring up Jack Cruz here in a little bit, and our podcast. In our field too, John, there's an establishment out there, and I kind of get it. They want to protect their turf. It's almost like we found exactly what works. This is exactly what everybody needs. And if there's ever anything that comes along that kind of threatens that establishment, then whoever made the change for the better, in most cases, it gets attacked, right? Because let's face it, wait a minute, I was talking with Tony Holler earlier today. He comes along and he develops this Feed the Cats program, it's very intense, but it's very, very low volume. Okay, it's very low volume, but it's very high intensity. The whole focus is on the athlete's speed. It has nothing to do with necessarily. He rarely or does almost nothing in a weight room. Everything's very power based, and he wins. All right, he wins. You have other people who do things a little bit differently. For example, John, we've interviewed Jay Schroeder. I mean, he has his critics too. I mean, Tony's got tons of critics. He's told me. Jay Schroeder. I mean, he's certainly had his critics. Very high volume, extremely high volume. Yet he still, as well, gets critiqued from the establishment, if you will. Spoke with Dan Fichter, same thing. I mean, he's like, I get critiqued every day, So I'm like, so the point is that I've noticed that anytime someone comes up with an idea that threatens any type of establishment in any area, politics, medicine. By the way, like I said, we'll get to the Jack Cruz thing here in a minute. Our field, in the strength and conditioning field, if we do something that threatens the establishment, it's the establishment that comes and tries to pick a fight with us, not the other way around. What's your experience?
I'm going to preface by saying this because I think it's important to note. I think when people look at me or they hear me or they watch our video and see this American flag tattoo on my arm, that they immediately think I'm a Republican. And I had actually a client even say that this week. He said, I wouldn't say he's a new client. He's I've only seen him about 3 or 4 times, but I'd seen him a couple of years ago. So there's a little bit of a relationship there, but not much. Where he said, I imagine, and I know you're probably a huge Republican. And I stopped him right there. And I said, I absolutely am not a Republican. I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Democrat. I am pro-freedom. And this divisiveness of left, right, gay, straight, Indian, black, Democrat, Republican, it's all bullshit. They're literally tearing us apart based on the pigment of somebody's skin. How low IQ and ignorant is that type of approach? So I bring that up because I'm very pro-freedom. I'm not this big Trumper. Yes, you can see I have a little Trump Terminator bobblehead, behind me. Yeah, because I thought it was freaking funny. But
Right.
there's a lot of things that Trump has done that I think are ridiculous. I think they're stupid. But in general, I think he's definitely the best option that we have. And you can't honestly say that your life was better 4 years ago than it is right now. We're all struggling with stuff. So I say all that because I would consider myself a very middle of the road type of guy with beliefs on both sides of the aisle. And that's how I think we all should approach stuff. We can have our core beliefs, but be able to go back and forth. That's what America is all about. That's what freedom is all about. We may not agree on everything, but in general, we're all after the same goal, the same prosperity, the same American dream, helping our clients get to their goals, do what they want to do, right? We may all have a little bit differing beliefs in how we get there. Same thing with our country. But in essence, we're all on the same page, and we're not divided by stupid shit like the pigment in somebody's skin. That is the same type of thing that we see in this industry here, our industry. The amount of people that have attacked me because of the things that we do, it's off the charts. And sometimes it's concerning. 9 times out of 10, it's not. It was definitely concerning in the beginning. I had these people come after me, and you wonder, it's like, oh, shoot, like, did I do something wrong? But then you remember, like, if you're not, making people mad or pissing some people off, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. And so to put all that together, this episode kind of came to be because if you don't know yet, we actually got one of our episodes ripped off of YouTube.
Right.
And yeah.
Yeah.
Now, I've already been open and saying I get most of my information from Andy Frisella. We're a First Form facility out here. My wife works for First Form. I love First Form. I love Andy. I love his company. I'm in his entrepreneur group. I love what he stands for. And so I get a lot of my, information from there. He's had hundreds of episodes stripped. Probably not hundreds, but he's had multiple episodes stripped down. So we had just one, and it pissed me off enough to where we want to do this type of episode. I can't imagine with somebody like him, how he feels. Right. So we had the Jack Cruz Part 2 episode taken down. And that was the episode where Dr. Cruz broke down COVID, basically.
Yep.
He broke down basically what's going on with the establishment. Talked about how his best friend, or one of his best friends, is Robert Kennedy. And yeah, I got notified on a Sunday night about a month ago that we violated the medical guidelines of YouTube. I didn't realize YouTube had medical guidelines. When did y'all become the medical, association, YouTube? Real
Right.
talk. Like, when did you become our medical directors? And so that, again, it boils into the points that we're talking about. Anytime that you bring something new to the table, you're going to threaten the establishment, and we have to ask why. And that's because what do all men want, and they can never have enough of? And the answer is power. That's always the answer. Men want power. And so when you challenge the establishment, you challenge that person or that organization's power, and they won't stand for that.
Yeah, and again, it's that power is in all aspects. I mean, I'm sure that there's there's somebody out there pissing off the accounting standard. I don't know. I'm just throwing something out there. But I say that I have no earthly idea. I know nothing about accounting. But it's like if you have, I'm sure there's an establishment in just about every single field out there. But it's usually the people who, if someone's failing miserably at what they're doing and they're doing something different than the establishment says, okay, let them go fail. But it's when someone, John, succeeds and they beat the establishment, I'll call it that, at their own game. Again, any field, pick your field. It's the Jack Cruzes of the world, getting a result with a patient that traditional medicine would fail, or maybe it would just try to treat the symptoms, if you will. And and let's face it, I believe in his particular case, he felt, this is Jack Cruz we're talking about, felt as if he did not have medical freedom. He did not have the he did not have the ability to practice the way he wanted to, and the way he knew was better. Again, I'm not a doctor. I'm just telling you, this is the way I perceive Jack Cruz's statements to us, and I don't think he felt like he had medical freedom in this country, and so he went elsewhere. So
he doesn't have medical freedom. We don't live in a free country. And I think that's where people get confused. Like, you talk about medical freedom, like that shouldn't come as a surprise to you or anybody else. We don't live in a free country. We are sold on an ideology that we live in a free country. Because we are the most taxed nation on the planet. Do you realize that more than 60% or 50 to 60% of your income goes to the government? And some of you guys are going to be like, oh, well, it's federal income. I only pay this. Well, you're a moron if you can't add up all the tax that you take from sales tax when you buy something, when you sell something, when you own something. Then you have estate taxes and death taxes and et cetera. All in, we're all over 50%, what makes us slaves to the government. So we are not in a free society. And so if they can regulate our spending power and our earning potential, then that regulates everything else. Then we have to fall in line with their little, bubble of how we do things.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
No, I'm not surprised he doesn't have medical freedom.
Yeah, it was, and again, as he was speaking, he was referring to, being asked by the president of El Salvador, which is where he now lives, to actually write a lot of the freedom law. And I'm not saying it, by the way, this was something that he told me and John in confidence. However, since that time, he has now come out and made it public that he was actually an advisor to the president of El Salvador, or what was that right, John? He's an advisor. Yeah. So, I mean, whatever it was. So now he basically is making sure, or at least he's attempting to make sure, that he has the right to practice medicine the way he sees that's best for himself, but mostly what's best for his patient. Without having to be dictated to by, use this drug for this condition and, blah, 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 whatever. So anyway, we'll try to, if anybody's interested, kind of reach back out to us, and we'll try to make sure that you know how to find that episode. Because if you're looking for it on YouTube, you won't find it.
It's not there. It's on audio.
Yeah.
They haven't taken it down off audio, but I'm sure they probably will.
Yeah,
so I'd encourage you to go listen to it.
Agreed. Agreed.
We talk about the Trump and Elon conversation, and I thought it was a great conversation. We did listen to it. I had it on the surround sound speakers at our house. Mm-hmm. I thought it was an excellent conversation. If you follow Trump and anything he says, it was basically the same thing, but he definitely dug into stuff a little bit more in depth. But the fact of the matter is that they put out a DDoS on this. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically, they call it a distributed denial of service, which basically means they jam up the internet and they don't allow traffic to come through. So it was already reported that the government was trying to do that. You see what's happening in Europe with people's freedoms being stripped away. Mm-hmm. And then, Matt, bro, you're in Canada. I don't even know what's going on up there anymore.
Yeah, Matt,
but at the end of the day, there were still 1 billion people that tuned into this. 1 billion. And yes, that is correct. I think the number was like 999 million or something like that.
Wow.
So it was 1 billion people. Let that sink in for a second, guys.
Yeah.
So what does that show you? That shows you that this story that we're being fed from the top down, all this DEI bullshit, all this racial division, all of this, it's not even radical leftism, it's communism shit that is pumped down through our society, that people, the political correctness, that people aren't buying it. 1 billion people tuned into this. Another example of this, is Chris, did you follow this Red Sox guy, this Jaron Duran?
No, not familiar.
Okay. Well, most people probably aren't familiar with who he is, anyways, but he plays for the Sox.
Okay.
So he got suspended. I think it was this past week. Maybe it was a week ago. I don't remember. It was a week or two ago. He got suspended for 2 games, I believe, for using a racial slur. It was a homosexual slur. How's that?
Okay.
He called a fan I'm not going to use it on our show just out of respect, but it's all a word that we've all used when we were little kids, right? When you were a little, when you were a kid running around, you probably called your buddy at the same word, right?
I can imagine. Yes,
Yeah.
I can.
Now, if you watch the video, this fan was heckling the guy nonstop. Now, we don't know the guy's sexual orientation, the guy in the audience watching, whatever. But it's irrelevant. It was 3-4 years ago. Jaron Duran would have been canceled, like gone. I mean, cut from the Sox, will never play baseball again. But look at how the tide has changed now. He is currently the number 1 selling jersey in Major League Baseball right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you look at these 2 scenarios here, right? You look at the Trump-Elon one where the Democrats are saying these 2 guys are trying to destroy our democracy. Yes, they're trying to destroy the democracy that they believe is democracy, not the American democracy that we, all billion of us, perceive and understand. It's their democracy, which is communism. And then you also compare that to this political correctness. People are over it. People aren't buying it anymore. They're not buying the story. And so that falls in line with us as well. And as coaches, guys, you can't not be afraid to speak up. I put a post out this past week about strength, and I got attacked kind of hard for it, and I welcomed it. It was great because I said something that challenged what the beliefs of certain people. And like you said, the same thing happens with other greats in our industry.
Yeah.
And if you're not willing to speak up, guys, whether it's our industry or whether it's medical or whether it's financial or whatever it is, guess what? In 3 months, you're not going to have a country to speak up for anyways.
Yeah, it's and the thing is, it's not. I think most people worth their salt in any industry are open to constructive criticism, right? I mean, let's face it. That's how we learn. We learn by, hey, sometimes screwing up and having someone who knows more than we do correct us. That just think of school or whatever as a kid.
That's how it used to be. That's not how it is now.
Okay, but so we screw up and we learn from mistakes. Sometimes we learn from hearing some about somebody else's mistake or whatever. Okay, that's great. We can all learn those types of things. But again, it's when someone tries to take away your ability or your freedom to to even at least bring something to people's attention, that's where John, that's where I draw the line. It's like, okay, it doesn't matter whether you agree or not with whatever. It doesn't matter if you agree or not. But whoever is saying, their opinion or whatever, they have a right to say it, right? You could totally disagree with it. That's fine. And so
that's the way it should be.
Absolutely, it's the way it should be. And so that's my thing. It's like, look, and if the other coach who follows a traditional approach, if they are worth their salt, they'll begin to explore, some of the things that especially let's say that I just, a team I train beat their team, whatever the case may be. Okay, you don't have to buy what I say hook, line, and sinker, but give it a little trial. Give it a fair, 1 month trial. Just see what happens. Do some pre and post tests. Consider it, because eventually, if you're so driven into a particular way of doing things, eventually you're going to get beat because you're so stuck in your ways. And that's what I'm. By the way, I would say Tony Holler and I, maybe Dan and Jay Schroeder. The one thing we all have in common is we're on up there in age for the strength and conditioning industry, but yet we're all we would all be considered almost like mavericks in the sense that we don't follow the norm. None of us do. And so,
Right, but the statement that you just made is also a lesson for coaches and athletes and parents and entrepreneurs as well.
right.
That the moment that you feel like you know it all, you're done. You automatically have started the decline
Yes.
because there is going to be somebody else coming up behind you that does know what you know or has the drive to learn more. And so that's a fundamental rule in being an entrepreneur, but also as a coach as well. Now, you can't go to the extreme and be a success zombie where all you do is read and go to conferences. You actually have to implement it. But
Right.
that's one of the problems that I have here in our industry, in our community, is that there are people here that think just because somebody played the sport that they're all of a sudden the master in this field. And I
Right.
believe it was Louis Simmons who said most strength coaches shouldn't be athletes. And
Yeah.
wouldn't you want an actual strength coach rather than the athlete trying to strength coach people or train people for strength or power and all that? So I think there's this line of being able to accept new information while still holding your core beliefs and being willing to adapt and grow from that and not just immediately shut things down. Be like, oh, no, that goes against what I'm doing. Because the same thing we see in this industry is the same thing we see in politics. And the way that we change society is by we change ourselves, and that bleeds over to the people around us. And that's essentially what this show is all about right here. Is, as I say, this is a show to help you win. I don't have all the answers. I've messed up more times than I can count. I'm lucky that my business has even survived this long. I've made so many mistakes. But I take advice and I learn from the other people that have done this and been there before me and continue to build and grow this thing. And it's the same thing that we do here in culture. If we improve on work on ourselves and are able to adapt and take new information and apply it and not just go left or right with it, then that bleeds over, and that's how we end up changing culture and changing society. And that's ultimately what we need if any of this shit is ever going to get fixed, ever.
Right. Agreed. Well, just very quickly. I mean, so some of the things that along the topics of what we're talking about, John, has a lot to do with what you're saying you were critiqued for, when you did that Instagram post recorded from your car.
Yep.
And that is, we've put a lot more emphasis on developing strength with speed. Strength with speed, position, velocity, we'll add some volume, but we're not anti-strength. I mean, I don't know where that thought comes from. I think that because we don't always use weights, it's often
ego.
thought of, it's like
it's
a lot
ego.
of times,
Because you can lift more than me, you automatically think that, you are the god on all things training related.
right. Yeah. And so it's not knocking strength. It's taking a different approach and developing strength in conjunction with speed, or in even more specifically, speed strength. So being able to move whatever mass it is you're trying to lift as fast as possible. And John and I had we did have an interview. I think we ended up having to scrap it with Dr. Mann, who's a velocity based strength training researcher. And anyway, I think we're gonna have to get him back on because he's actually done a lot of research in this regard. And so I think that's a lot of people don't like that. They think strength belongs in the weight room, and then we do speed on the track or on the field, and then we do yoga to loosen up. And it's like, no, you don't have to do a whole bunch of different things. You can get it all if you train the right way. You can get faster, you can get stronger, you can get more flexible, but you have to do it and you have to train everything together, and you have to be willing to accept different ways of accomplishing those goals. It's not just squatting heavy.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if you're a power lifter, go squat. If you're a power lifter, go squat heavy. I get it. But most of the athletes I work with, they have to run, they have to jump as part of their sport. They don't they don't follow the same neurological pattern as a squat most of their sport. So.
Yeah. I say it to parents all the time. Like, We don't squat much at ELP. I mean, we will box squat a little bit, but I think one of the only athletes that really need to squat are offensive linemen. Personally, that's just my opinion.
Right.
But
Yeah.
you know, guys, I know there wasn't. Today was more about a message. We're at a major turning point in our country, and I don't think a lot of people understand how serious what's happening really is. You know, I went down the rabbit hole when COVID hit, and police officers were in our parking lot the Saturday morning after the mayor closed our city down. And I said, that won't ever happen again to me. And I went down that rabbit hole, and I went down really far, really far. Guys, I don't think people realize, you understand that we are 3-4 months away from possibly losing this country. Real talk. We will never, they'll execute all of us speaking out. We're dead. We're gone. So I don't know who's going to fight for you after that. Most small businesses are going to close. Guys, we are that close to everything that you think America is being gone. And the reason that's relevant is we need to save this country, but it's also because how we do that starts with what we are doing ourselves as a community and what we're doing with our clients and our families. Because if we can fix ourselves and make ourselves better, then like I said, that bleeds over into everybody else. It sets a new standard, and that is desperately what our country needs, is a new standard, because we've gotten away from that. And that's all I got to say on it.
Yep. Yeah. Freedom. You know, let's face it. Freedom is, that's what we're after. You know, everyone wants to be free, or not everybody apparently, but I think it is important that we remember what America was built on in that case, and look, freedom. That's ultimately what it comes down to.
That's it, guys. Go share the show.